And welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel.
I think I've gotten that pitch down like almost perfect, Daniel. Like I notice I say the exact, like I drop a tone every time I introduce myself. Like with Daniel, and then I wait, like I don't normally say my name that way.
Well, you rarely go by Daniel unless you're doing this or something else. When you're trying to be professional.
Professional. Yeah. No, I don't act professional. Anybody who watches this channel already knows that, we're good at what you and I do right now. But is that good compared to everything? No, I don't know.
No.
Daniel, how have you been, man?
I've been doing pretty good, other than I'm feeling a little feverish because I got my first shot, so there's that.
Congratulations. And if you live in New Mexico, or if you're familiar with this, you'll notice that we are in the middle of a dust cloud for this past entire week.
Yeah. So both of our allergies are acting up. Mine not as bad as yours, but you might hear wind every so often in the background. So just a heads up.
Yes, exactly.
We got gusts up to 35, 40 miles per hour today, and it's freaking brown outside.
Last time I measured it, our trampoline was upside down. That's how I measure the wind. If it's at least that much.
You have a trampoline, or is that your neighbor's trampoline?
Well, it's the neighbor's now. No, thankfully, our swing set caught it. It suffered some structural damage, but I think it'll work.
Well, you know how like people up in the north, they get whiteouts because of blizzards? Well, yes. Down here where we live, we get brownouts.
Brownouts, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you've seen those images of like Welcome to New Mexico, and it just has like the massive dust cloud on the horizon, and it's like beautiful and sunny except for this massive thing.
Massive dust. Yeah, that's what we live through.
I actually know what that's called. Do you know what the term for that massive dust cloud is called?
A haboob.
A haboob, yes. we live in the haboob region.
So let's just put it this way. Everybody looks forward to spring because they have those really harsh winters. We want to get out of spring.
Yeah. I found some great Facebook pictures like, welcome to March in New Mexico, and it's just round. Like you can see like a little bit of road in front of you. Oh,
I remember one time we flew up to Tennessee to go visit some family for a wedding. Yeah. On our way back, we were coming back. It was around Easter time, and we were flying with some guy, and he's like, what is that? Is there like something going on out there? Is that smog? And we're like, oh, no, it's spring in El Paso. So,
Yep. Welcome to the – and so, the worst part, this weekend, we were driving back from Ruidoso, and which is a beautiful little mountain town, and I'll tell you personally some stories later. But on the way back, we go through a place called Alamogordo, and it was just as windy as it was now, except over there we have the White Sands National Monument. So I went from like what looks like a normal cloud, it just looks like fog, until it burns your skin as you're pelted with tiny rocks. Oh my goodness.
So for people who don't know what White Sands National Park is.
National Monument.
It's a park now, isn't it?
No, it's a monument, I think still.
Okay. Well, anyways, it's gypsum. So it's a mineral that is as fine as sand. So like white sand beaches and stuff like that. I actually got married there. But when it's windy, you do not want to be anywhere near it because that thing they talk about like wind erosion on the mountains and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what the sand's doing to you while it's windy.
Yeah, like you see like all the beautiful sand dunes, and you wonder, it's like why don't you see footprints? Like how like as the wind covers up the footprints, well, it does that to your skin too. So you don't have skin suddenly, and you're like, why is it red all around here? I feel like I have road rash, like falling off of a motorcycle. No, I was enjoying the scenery.
And Creative Chaos says, yes, the wind really sucks, and it's a national park as of last year, and that's what I was saying, is it became a national park.
I stand corrected. Hi, Crate. How are you doing? No, I stand absolutely corrected then. I thought it was still just a national monument, but I guess
no, it's a park now.
Our Oregon Mountains became a national monument. That's what I was remembering a few years ago. Okay. Anyway, we digest. Let's talk about some of the games we've been playing. Daniel, you and me were talking about it. You've been playing a lot of games lately, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I've actually been playing my Switch a lot more lately. Right as of right now, I was been getting into Dragon Quest 9 or 11. The title on that game is ridiculous. It's like Dragon Quest 11S, elusive of an age, or some weird nonsense like that. But no, I haven't been playing a lot of games.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll talk about all the games that I've been playing, and I'll run through them pretty quick. I
And then
won't
I'll
talk about
talk
all.
about like some stuff that I'm looking forward to because I've had some stuff happen this week that I'm looking forward to.
Ooh. I just recently got. I went on a small little trip. It was my wife's and my anniversary. Not just my wife's. It was also mine too. Believe it or not.
Happy
Uh,
anniversary, by the way, belated.
oh yeah, no problem. It's all right. All
Hey,
I had to do was show up.
and guess what? It's
Huh.
our anniversary next week.
Yes, for the podcast. Let's be clear about this. But yeah, no. So amongst the trip, there was a small little bookstore. We went to Riadoso, and that's a place that you know pretty well, right? You know
Yeah.
Riadoso. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Riadoso, it's a small little town in the mountains. You know, maybe 8,000 people live there. It's a little village, and but they have a really nice downtown area, and
Hmm.
uh, and there was a small bookstore. It used to be small. It's now kind of big. It's called Books Etc. I'm gonna give them a
Yeah,
shout
yeah,
out
yeah.
because I went in there and I was like, okay, they sell like some kids' toys and some novelty items and whatnot. But I was like, maybe they'll have a game or two that I like. They actually had a whole wall of games. And so I got really excited because the wife said, okay, well, as long as we have enough gas to go home still, whatever. And I was like, okay. And she had spent the whole morning shopping anyway. So I hadn't spent a single thing until I went into that store. And I left with the biggest purchase of all. No, I only got about 6 or 7 games. But the cool thing is, we found a game that I was really excited of called Outfoxed, which is going to be the
Mm.
first one I talk about. We've talked about this and how much we wanted to try Outfox when we did our Game Right episode. Well, I played
Also, our children's games episode too.
and the children's game episode. Yeah, I finally got a chance to play it. The first thing I did when I got home, that me and my kids sat down and we played Outfoxed, and it's fun. It's good. It's you're beholden to random. Okay, so first off, it's a kids game. You're going to expect some random,
Yeah.
but here's the way it works. It's cooperative deduction. You have one of the thief cards, which is 16 characters of foxes who are wearing different things like hats, jewelry, umbrellas. They're not wearing umbrellas, but you get the idea. They all have all
Yeah.
these accessories, and you're trying to determine if they have it or not. There's one of the thief cards that's put into this little contraption that's really neat. It has like a couple little slidey windows, and there's spots around the board where you start in the center and you're trying to get to the clue spots. So let's talk about how you do it. Each of the dice have 3 eyeballs on it, and 3 of them have like footprints. And so 2 of those spaces have a single footprint, one of them has 2 footprints. So on your turn, on your turn, you are going to choose whether you want to reveal suspects, which is the eyeballs, or if you want to search for clues, which is the footprints. Once you've declared it, you have to roll for that. Then you have 3 rolls trying to get just that symbol. So let's say I'm going to look for clues. I want little footprints. I roll it. 2 of them are a single footprint, and one's an eyeball. I roll it again. It's another eyeball. The third roll, if I don't bust that, or if I get another footprint, then I get to move the number of spaces equal to the number of footprints I see.
Okay.
And so the clues are scattered throughout the board, kind of. When you get to a certain spot, a clue spot, you get a clue, and I'll explain that in a minute. But let's talk about if you bust, because there's a little fox figurine that slowly walks down. If you bust, he moves 3 spaces towards the exit. If he gets to the exit, you lose. So the game is contingent on if you bust or not, really. Now, of course, if you reveal suspects, you start with 2 of the 16 suspects revealed, and you can use the clues to try and eliminate them. So, for example, if I know that this one has to have an umbrella, which was in our game, and that one does not have an umbrella, get rid of it. It's discarded.
Hmm.
But you can't get rid of it unless they're revealed. So that's what the revealing comes into. So you're trying to balance between these, trying to figure out which is the remaining fox. Finally, this contraption, it's super cool. So the card is sitting in there, and there's like a ring of like little green circles that are somewhere on the card, right?
Yeah.
And the clue tokens look like word bubbles, but they have a hole missing from them. So you overlap that over the hole on the clue card, and there's a little slider window that slides out and reveals whether you look through that little hole. If it's green, they have the item. If it's white, they do not have the item. And then you slide it back in, take the token off, and then now you can't see anything behind it. It's a cool contraption. I'm surprised more people don't use it because it actually works really well. It's incredibly smart. But yeah, no, it was, for being a kid's game. I see why it's done. My kids absolutely had a blast with it. They could
I
not.
heard it's actually a really good game to teach kids deduction.
It is. It absolutely is. It's no more deduction than like Guess Who, or not Guess Who. Yeah, Guess Who. It's no more deduction than that, really. But the fact is of weighing the balances of like who's going to go for clues, who's going to be revealing. Like, let's hope we don't bust.
Yeah.
One of the funniest moments in that is when you say, "Okay, I'm going to look for clues, so I need puppy feet." Roll, and they're all eyes. You're like, well, great. I loved that. It was so great. It got us cracking up every single time. So that's outcome.
I really have to try this.
I will bring it over to our next game night, and we can have 4 grown adult men playing a children's game, 100%. And I think you guys will like it.
Sounds pretty good. When that next game night is, who knows? Hopefully soon. So, like I said,
bring a whole shelf.
I haven't really been playing any games lately, but I am looking forward to jumping back into Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion this weekend. Me and the wife have decided we are going to play a little bit more later on. I'm hoping to be done with it by the summer. I think I'll be done with it beforehand as well. I don't know where the campaign is going and what we're going to do after we finish it, but I really, really have dug Jaws of the Lion and some of the changes they made for the rules and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to maybe cracking back into the big game, and going back into that. I know Frosthaven's going to be coming out soon. It's funny because I just got a email about a month back, and he's like, "Look, there's a lot going on here, so we're going to push back Frosthaven for a little bit." And I was like, you know what? That's fine because I still got to finish the first game, and we're in the middle of the campaign of Jaws of the Lion right now, so I'm good. You could push Frosthaven back for a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. How far along are you on the campaign now?
I think we've done 17 or 18 plays of it. I know we've had to replay a couple scenarios. So I think we're about halfway to 3/4 of the way done.
Nice. Wow. That's a lot of gaming.
It's a lot of gaming. Yeah, we've almost played 20 games since Christmas. So
wow. Yeah, that's not nothing to scoff at. The next game that I've been playing is one that I think you'll be very interested to learn. The game Quick and Easy. I got the mini version of it. Okay. So you and I already like the game, right? I mean, you like the game quite a bit. That's the one where the numbers are 1 through 100. Not the one where you just play them. The one where you have 2 piles going up, 2 piles going down.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the game, it's really cool. The game Quick and Easy is like the micro version of that 100 card game. It has 52 cards. And
what is that 100 card game? Is it 6 Nimt?
Well, there's a few. There's the game about 100. 6 Nimt.
Oh, the game. Okay, yeah.
The game. And so the way this one works though is you have 50 cards numbered from 1 to 10, and they're in 5 different colors. There's no repeating. Now, the way it works is that you have 1 pile that goes up and 1 pile that goes down. So if you have a 3 on the pile that goes up, you can only play 4 through 10. Simple as that. And you can only ever do that. So if you play a 7 after the 3, then you can play 8, 9, or 10. However, if you play a card of the same color, you can ignore that rule. So if I play a blue 10 on the going up pile, Daniel, you could play any blue number to that pile to try and reset it. So if you had a blue 1, which happened in our game, throw it down, boom, it reset that pile. All better. All you have to do, play all 50 cards between you and the group. Simple as that. Any questions? No?
No, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Me and my son played it twice last night, and after I taught him the first time, he was like, "I like this. Like, let's play again." We lost miserably. Goodness. I think extra communication would help with that. Like, we just pretty much didn't talk about our cards at all. It was more like you look at your cards, all right, and then you play one. You're like, sorry about that, and then
All right.
no helping. So yeah, the game, quick and easy, awesome game. Although my copy didn't have a rule book.
That's weird.
Yeah, it came with the catalog for Pandasaurus, didn't have a rule book. I already knew how to play the game. I was excited to do it, but yeah, it was weird. Yeah, it's kind of like Uno, but like way better and cooperative and working together. Like it's interesting. It's worth trying.
All right, the next thing I want to talk about is new games. A couple Kickstarters I'm in right now. Not to mention, I just got some new games in. A couple Kickstarters I want to talk about real quick. Everdell. They got the 2 expansions up there, and I can get the big old box so I can put it all into one. And the other one is Stellaris Infinite Legacy. So think Twilight Imperium that plays in 2 hours. That's a campaign game. And you know what's cool about it? You're not tearing or anything up. When you're playing an Infinite Legacy, you can play it with different groups and still have a different game without tearing anything up. It's still a legacy game where things are unlocked and you're moving around, but it's something that you can reset and start a new game and see different parts of it. So I'm intrigued by it because I'm a big fan of that video game. And so I want to see, and it's an Academy. So I like Academy games. So let's see what happens there. The big 3 that I recently got is one Kickstarter came in. That's Bullet from our friends at Level 99. I'm really looking forward to that. Want to give it a try. I might try to get a solo game sometime this week, but I got a lot of homework to do when it comes to our next week's recordings.
Oh, yes.
Also was able to go to Barnes & Noble where they're having a huge sale and was able to pick up Machi Koro Legacy for $25 in a big game that I've been wanting for a while because I'm a Ryan Lockett fan.
I know you're.
And the fact that I was able to pick up Near and Far for $25, I was so happy. It's all punched out and ready to go. I just need to get it played now.
That's the trick. That's what you have to do apparently. Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, those are good ones. The next one I want to talk about that I've been playing was the last one I got played last night, and it's another new game that Daniel, you and I are huge Phil Walker Harding fans. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. I got to play another one of his that I have never played before. It's brand spanking new from Blue Orange.
The Duel.
Nope.
Oh, Blue Orange. No, I've heard of it, but I haven't played it yet.
Cloud City. Yes. Cloud City.
Is that Blue Orange or is that Capstone?
It's Blue Orange.
Okay.
You're thinking Cloud Age, which
Cloud
is like
Age,
the heavier Euro game. No, this is very. The pieces are beautiful. I have one really, really strong complaint against it, which you'll understand here in a minute. But essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to build these bridges amongst different skyscrapers that are peeking up over the clouds. When you lay down a tile, it'll have 2 spots that are colored, and each of the different buildings, the colors corresponds to their height. The shortest is the blue ones, the medium ones are green, and then the tall ones are brown. So I think you see where I'm going with my complaint here.
Mm-hmm.
The buildings are easy to distinguish between. The tiles are absolutely just the worst because those brown and green, they're both darker brown, darker green. They're incredibly matching. I'm probably just going to take a Sharpie to it so I can mark them because the game itself was actually really good.
It's a Phil Walker Harding.
It's a Phil Walker Harding. And at first I was thinking it's a very simple game. Like all you do is place down a tile, you place the 2 buildings that match the colors, and if you want, you can place tunnels between those buildings and other buildings that you have that are the same height. So the farther the tunnel, the more points they're worth. That's it. However, what makes it really interesting is the fact that obviously tunnels can't intersect if they have the same height. So you block yourself off. Obviously, shorter tunnels can't go through taller buildings, but taller buildings can go, those tunnels can go over the shorter ones. That's fine. But so at first I was like, okay, this seems overly simple. And then I started
Mhm.
playing it and I was like, oh, I see where this is going. And then you have this beautiful, beautiful like cacophony of just tunnels going every which way, trying to weave them in and out. It works really well. I was pretty impressed with it. And yeah, I encourage you to definitely try it. I think you'll like it a lot. I
I'll have
don't
to
know
check
how
it
it
out
ranks
now.
in the others yet, but it's up there.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Creative Chaos says they're not considering it in the color scheme, and a lot of games companies.
There's
Is that
a
a
quick
picture of
picture
you?
of us playing with our buildings there.
Can't see it very well, but
Yeah.
um, uh, I don't know why people don't do what Stonemaier has done. I have to give credit for Stonemaier games, where they
Yep.
use apps that specifically help them deal with colorblind issues. They use different apps to do this. This way, they're able to put color schemes that people can see in their games. I have to give them full credit for that. Not a lot of game companies do that, and more should.
Didn't we give him that idea? No, I don't think we did we?
No, no, he was already doing it.
We
But
gave
he
one of
talked
our
about it. Yeah, we
yeah,
talked about it where he was saying that, well, we use these situations. This is why we have good color schemes, because they use like 4 different tools to make it easier for
right.
colorblind people to play their games. And when you're more inclusive, it makes people more want to buy your games. That's why I'm a huge Stonemaier fan. He looks into this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay.
And
Okay.
for
Yeah,
my
definitely.
last thing I want to talk about is, and what I'm excited for, is I got my first shot of the vaccination, as I mentioned earlier. That's why I'm feeling a little feverish.
Mhm.
I'm doing okay right now, but I'm not trying to be political on it. But I received the first shot, and it's exciting for me to know that it's possible for me to get back to some normalcy soon. I still have to get the second shot, and I still have to wait the 2 weeks to get the full shebang of the vaccination. But I really, really want to host game night again. So I want more and more people to go out there and, if possible, get this shot, because I want to get back to normalcy. I want to go back to conventions. I want to go back to game nights with my friends, or go back to the shop and play a couple games. And by getting a vaccine, why not? Honestly, that's what I'm looking forward to.
It's worth it. Yeah. Shot in the arm is worth two in the foot. Is that the saying? I don't two in the bush. No? Um brightest crayon in the coloring box. I don't remember the saying, but it has something to do with shots. No, I completely agree. I can't wait to get mine. This way we can start gaming and getting back to normal.
Yeah.
Speaking of normal, the last game I'm going to talk about is Thanos Rising, Avengers Infinity War. I finally got to show my wife how to play this. She wasn't even in the mood to play a game, but I kind of guilted her into doing it. And my son, he was excited and picked up really well. And oh my goodness, did we get destroyed in that game? I'm pretty sure that was the fastest loss to that game we've ever had. And I don't know if we did something wrong. I don't think we did.
No, it's just the luck of the game. Trust me, I've done really, really well in the game, and then I've been massacred in the game within like 4 turns. So
Right. Yeah, no, it was brutal. It was a massive death. It was worse than what I hear about the movie out of everybody who's told me how it ends. I've never seen it, so I don't know how it actually ends. But I've heard things.
I can lend you the movies. I have them on Blu-ray.
No, I don't care. I don't like them. But I appreciate the offer. I'll just stick with that. Well, was that the game I put? Great. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But maybe if it was over Twitch, I think we might have played it. That wouldn't have surprised me. Where I was rolling the dice for everybody, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that was the last one I felt like talking about today. Other than playing like Sparkle and Onirim and all those
As
fun
much
ones.
as I gotta say I like the Thanos one and I own it, I prefer the Star Wars one. It's just so hard to get in
Yeah.
America. You have to import it from Europe.
Speaking of Star Wars, I got the unlocks as well. So
Yeah, I want to pick those up. I saw them at Barnes and Noble when I was there, but I'm like, I'm already buying these games on sale. That's still full price. I don't know.
right, yeah, yeah, I got it on sale online, which is that big box of sent the pictures to our group, and yeah, it looks really good. If you want, I'll lend it to you after we're done with it, but I don't know when that's going to be. So
That's fine.
let's get into our topic this week,
It's
Daniel.
a good one. We've talked about it before too.
All right, go for it.
So the big thing about this one is we've done our compare and contrast before. The first one we did was Unmatched versus Funkoverse. This week we ask to compare and contrast in which game do you like more, Machi Koro versus Space Base, because these are two games that get compared a lot.
Yep, exactly. And John D. Clare, the designer of Space Base, he even jokingly said during our podcast, he was like, "Oh yes, the game that was in no way inspired by Machi Koro. Let's be real here." I love the way he said that. But I mean, he's right. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from another game.
No, it's not.
It's just like music. Like that's how you make more and better music is by taking inspiration, standing on the shoulders of giants. So Machi Koro came out in I think 2015 here in America. Space Base was probably about 2017 or 2018.
18.
2018. Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. But we're going to be comparing and contrasting the two in as much detail as we can. Our goal is, if you like one of them and haven't played the other one, hopefully this will help you decide if you would like the other one.
Or if you haven't played either of them, which one do you think you would prefer over the other?
Right, exactly. So, Daniel, while I pull up the forum that we posted, why don't you begin our discussion about this?
So I posted this to our Board Game Revolution group that we post all the time on, and we didn't get a lot of answers. There are some on here, starting with Shane, and he was saying Space Base is really fun, and he'd play it over Machi Koro anytime.
Okay.
Still working on pulling it. All right, I'll just keep going through these.
Yep.
Eric says he prefers Space Base due to the inherent variability in the base game setup. Machi Koro is fun, but the base game setup gets old, and if you add expansion, the games turn into a slog that lasts way too long. Chris follows that up with the correct answer to this question is the Valeria Card Kingdoms, followed by Space Base. And he had two replies saying that of agreement. Michael says exactly what I plan to say, and Kevin says he cannot disagree. I've never played the Valerian Card Kingdoms. Have you?
I have not played it, but I do own it, and I had considered bringing that up, but I haven't actually been able to get it off my shelf of shame. It's sitting right there.
Huh.
I don't actually know if I'm correct. All
right. So Lane says, I've played Machi Koro Legacy and I enjoyed that a lot. Space Base does a great job keeping all players engaged, even when it's not their turn. I enjoy the art of Machi Koro better, but for gameplay and engagement, I give it to Space Base. Emma follows that up with, there is a third version, Valeria Card Kingdoms. However, Space Base is my favorite because it has less take that. And finally, Neil says, I've played Machi Koro, but not the other. I like Machi Koro.
Yep, that's fair. Yeah, and so I definitely started with Machi Koro between the two. I mean, because of course it was older, but we'll be talking about some of the pros and cons of it here in a moment. But one thing that I really did enjoy about it is, and the one thing that nobody who commented referenced is that how in games like Settlers of Catan you roll some dice and you get some stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's essentially Machi Koro, but boiled down to a really simple idea. Your only resource is money. That's it. And so in Machi Koro, you roll some dice, and if you get the correct numbers, then you get some money. And your ultimate goal is to build out this engine to get a lot more money based on what cards you have to eventually build your, in the base game, it's four
landmarks. Yeah,
four landmarks. Yep, it's 6 or more with expansions. And so first one to build those 4 landmarks by spending the money to do it wins the game. And it's a neat little engine. It is beholden to the rolls, of course, like any games that have dice in it. We'll be talking about the same with Space Base as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more ways to mitigate it in Space Base, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that.
All right.
For me personally, I started with Machi Koro as well. You actually showed me and my wife Machi Koro. My wife disliked this game. She did not like Machi. Me, I'm okay with Machi Koro. I bought the Legacy because I've been wanting to try it. I'm okay with it. I enjoy the game. Do I agree with some of what people were saying that Space Base is better at what both of them do? yes, I like Space Base a little bit more, but it's not saying that I hate Machi Koro. I actually enjoyed the game. It's just not something I could own myself because my wife won't touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot more going on in Space Base that would turn people off. Whereas Machi Koro, I mean, if you know how to roll two dice and add the numbers together, and you've ever played Monopoly, and I'll make that comparison more here in a bit, then I think you would have a really good time with Machi Koro, in all honesty.
I think her big problem with Machi Koro, and we'll get into it when we get into the pros and the cons and stuff like that, is that with Machi Koro, there is a take that aspect of it.
Yep.
Where it's like if their people have red buildings in their tableau, they can take money away from you. So if you're trying to build up to get your landmarks or get better buildings out there, and then, oh, by the way, I rolled this number, so now they're taking my money away from me, and now I have to wait again before I can start getting money back in properly. I get why some people have a problem with that.
Yeah, definitely. The base game had there was some problems with the base game as far as that went, and with future versions and expansions, they actually fixed a lot of it. So we'll go into that. Which part about the games do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about the player counts first. Straight out of the box, Machi Koro can only hold up to 4 players.
Right. Yeah, it can only hold up to 4 players, 2 to 4. If we're talking time and length of play, it can go pretty quick, but it can also go kind of long too.
Yeah, I think that's the issue with Machi Koro is that it either plays really, really quickly or really, really long. Very often, I feel there's no in between with the two. Either it goes really fast or it goes really long. There's not a good medium with that.
Sure.
Space Base, I think it goes faster because it can hold up to 5 people. Out of the box, it's 2 to 5.
It does. It's consistently long, is what it is. It's not as long as like Machi Koro can be incredibly long, whereas this, like, it tops about an hour, but it's almost always an hour.
The thing about Space Base, though, is that it doesn't feel like an hour. Sometimes with Machi Koro, you feel the length of the game. Whereas Space Base, because you're engaged with every roll at the table, whether it's your roll or someone else's roll,
yeah,
you're engaged the whole time. So it doesn't feel like it's an hour. When you're done with it, you're like, wow, it's already been an hour? That was a quick hour.
Yeah.
Machi Koro, sometimes it plays, like I said, really quick. And then sometimes you're like, oh my God, it's been an hour. Is this game almost over yet?
Right. And that's because of one mechanism that's in just the base game, is that all 15 cards are out in the base game. You roll some dice. If you're just not rolling anything to get money, well, then you're just at a standstill. And so is everybody, because nobody's getting money because you just haven't built that engine yet.
I think a good thing about Space Base, too, is that you get the 2 dice no matter what. Machi Koro, in the beginning of the game, you're only rolling one. And that's it. You get that 1 dice. Then, if you get your landmark put up that allows you to get both dice, you can choose to roll 1 dice and get the possibility 1 through 6. Or you can roll 2 dice and get the possibility between 2 to 12. However, you don't get to split it like in Space Base, where I can take the 3 and the 4 because it can trigger more actions than, say, just triggering a 7.
Right.
Whereas in Machi Koro, if I roll the 3 and the 4, I have to take it as a 7.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So if we're talking as far as just that goes and how the base game works, I like what Machi Koro did with the Harbor expansion. That was the first to introduce more of like a tableau of cards where you shuffle all the base cards together, deal out 10 unique piles, and then that's kind of the flow of it. It actually adds a lot more variety into the game. I think it's a brilliant solution for it. Whereas the expansions for Machi Koro, they just add more cards to the card rows, which is what it was doing already. Now, if we also remember, Machi Koro started in Japan, and it was in a box, not much bigger than just a card box. It was about yay big, and that's all it needs to be.
Yeah.
Whereas, and when it was brought to America, it was put in a massive box for the components, and I get it. It's trying to make
it's a sales thing. In Japan, they're more worried about space because they don't have a lot of room, so that's why it comes in a normal card box, which it should be in. Whereas here, you want if smaller games tend to get overlooked a lot more here in America.
Yep. It's hard to justify spending $30 on a game that's in a box that big, that's the size of your wallet. You can't justify that, but you can justify a big box that's $30 that has a whole lot of game in it, which I think
I would have been okay if they put it in the size of the Space Base box. The Space Base isn't a normal Ticket to Ride size box that most people compare to. It's more along the lines of the West Kingdom boxes or anything Garphill Games put out.
Yep. Yeah, both Machi Koro and Space Base come in almost the exact same size box, but there's a lot more components in Space Base. In
Mhm.
Machi Koro, there's just a stack of cards and some coins and 2 dice. Space Base, you have 5 individual player boards, tokens, charge counters, and all the cards, which are thinner and they're a little weird, but it does that.
Yeah, the
So
card. So you want to talk about the components? Let's compare and contrast the components while we're on it.
yes, let's jump over to components. Do you want to start off with Space Base?
With Space Base, it comes with 2 dice, as we mentioned. Machi Koro does the same thing. It comes with 2 dice. Space Base, their cards are a little different. I would consider it, if you ever played the pack games, the bubblegum pack games that were on the Kickstarter, the cards are about that shape, maybe a little bit larger, but they're in bubblegum stick size. They're like that big. It's interesting on that aspect of it. I don't hate it. The card quality's fine. My issue is the player boards with Space Base.
Right.
They could have recessed them to make it easier to keep track.
Right, yeah. So the way that it works in Space Base functionally with the game is that when you flip a card or you send the ship out from your base, you put it upside down underneath your board and you slide it in, so you just see the top part of the card, which is the bottom upside down on the other side. And so every time you have to slide it underneath. Well, if you're playing on a surface that doesn't account for that, it makes it a little tricky. What I've found is the best method to do it is to essentially take the card that's already under it, slide it out a bit more, and then slide the other one underneath or in between that card and the board. That tends
Well,
to
it's not just that. It's also the when you're keeping track of your victory points and all your other stuff too, where the little cubes go. For what I was looking online, they're not really recessed and they don't stick where people are 3D printing little recesses for them to keep good track of everything.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I should do that. But no, yeah, it's
One bump of the table and all your stuff is gone.
right, exactly. And then so you have 3 tokens that are just sitting there on the board, and we've had that. We've bumped the table before, and like my son, he's a brilliant gamer, but he is kind of clumsy when it comes to like touching stuff. So he'll roll the dice into his tokens, and you're like, oh no, you suddenly don't know what you had anymore, and so, but I've actually I'm really proud of how I raised him, because if he says I think I was somewhere between 6 and 8, I'm just gonna take 6. He always takes the lowest answer because he's like, it was at least this much, so I'll do that. It's like cool, where like some kids are like, oh well, since it slipped, it's probably around here, and put it away over on the end of the board. Yeah, it's not to say some kids are dishonest, but some kids are dishonest, and it is what it is. Where Machi Koro, there was one big functional problem with the components, and that was with different editions of the game, the cards were slightly incorrectly sized to each other. And I don't know if that's because they had it printed elsewhere, but if you have expansions and a base game that was printed from a different printing, then your cards will be off. And that's a big problem with it. Now, that's a minor problem because the cards aren't really used for shuffling. You only shuffle them at the beginning anyway, and everything else is tableau building. So functionally in the game, it doesn't matter. But setup, it's just obnoxious shuffling cards that are different sizes. It doesn't properly mix. So that's one problem that I had. Also, the die that I got in my copy, part of the blue was just white. It was just like as if it didn't get painted.
Yeah.
So I took a blue Sharpie to it to fix it. It's a minor thing, but
why? Yeah.
How do you mess up a die? Like that's such a small thing to mess up.
All right. So now we're comparing and contrasting the production value of the games. What about the art? Which do you think is the better looking game?
Machi Koro, hands down. And
I have to agree with you.
It has a very like minimalistic, like Japanese landscape style. All the buildings look like the buildings that they're trying to represent. Whereas like Space Base, those ships are super cartoony. And I like the color tone between the board and the cards. It makes it very clear which field or which bay that they're supposed to be docked in. But I don't know. There's something about those ships that just look so cheesy to me.
And that's the thing about Space Base too, with the artwork on it. Yeah, the ships are cheesy and it's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's nice art. But here's the problem. That's really the only art in the game is just what's on the card. Machi Koro, you have the buildings are different. Like the same numbers are the same, but there's a plethora of art in there. And this one, it's just ships. It's all it is, the ships. You have the wheat field, so that looks really nice. You have the bakery, that looks really nice. It looks completely different than the cafe. It looks completely different from the sports stadium. So I love the way that art looks. There's not a lot of it because, again, both are just cards, but the art is just more pleasing in Machi Koro.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the fact that they have the big cards, functionally, if you had the normal size cards in Space Base, it would be obnoxious because your board would be
Yeah.
half the table. It makes total sense why they did the thin cards. But I mean, Machi Koro just I think looks better on the table, like by having that big stack of money there, having or the money
Mhm.
token, having all these cards of different buildings. It looks like you're building a landscape in a way. Whereas Space Base, it's supposed to look like you have like a little control center,
Mhm.
but I've never felt that way playing it.
And the thing about Space Base too, yeah, you have the art on the ships. But when you get that ship and cast it off where you can flip it on the red side, you don't see it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And then the red side, it's a small little icon. Now the
Yeah,
iconography is really great in that game. Um, Machikoro
but
doesn't have
yeah,
good iconography.
when we're talking about minimalistic art in Wachikoro, there's minimalistic art in Space Base too. That's because there's minimal art in Space Base.
Well, art, yeah. So if we're talking first off, let's backtrack just a scotch, to gameplay and time. What would you compare Space Base to and Machikoro to? Like if you like this game because of the amount of player count and and
Hmm.
the kind of interaction. We didn't get too much detail into that, but
Yeah, I was going to say that for a little bit later, but if I would have to compare it to
right.
anything, Space Base, if you like gizmos, I think you would like Space Base
Okay.
because of the moving parts in it. You're always engaged with what's going on. If you have this, this triggers this. If you have this triggers this. Machi Koro doesn't trigger as much as it's a nice little engine building if you're building the engine for yourself. Whereas in Space Base, you're building the engine because you're also trying to build your engine for the other people and what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and so I would compare that kind of like Gizmos, where if you like that engine building, but you want it to play a little more with the dice rolls, the luck on it, I would compare those two.
Okay. That's fair. I would compare Machikoro to something more akin to like actually Monopoly. I think based on like the player count, if you want like a lighter version of Monopoly, you still have kind of
Yeah, I
like
can see that.
that silly interaction that way you get steal
Yeah.
other people's money and charge them rent for using your service. Well, then I think that's a very apt comparison. If you want like a gamer version of Monopoly, Machikoro is really kind of your method. We'll get more into
Yeah.
that later.
Yeah.
Um, art and production, though, how would you compare the games?
I like the production in Space Base. I just think Machi Koro really shines in this category if we're going by our 5 criteria for a top 8 debate. This is what I would give Machi Koro. The art is much better. The card quality, because it's normal size cards, I like a little bit more. The minimalistic of it, because it's just 2 dice and some coins. That's it, plus the
Yeah.
cards. And nothing changes. Space Base, you got the boards. There's some issues with those. You got the cards. It's good that they went small because, yeah, like you said, it would be obscene trying to play a 4 player game with normal size cards of the command deck and stuff like that. So for me, on production, Machi Coral is the better game.
Okay, that's fair. That's very cool. All right, so let's talk about expansions and what they add. Machi
Mm-hmm.
Koro, it adds. There's two expansions for it. There's the Millionaires Row and there's the Harbor expansion. Harbor expansion I feel is necessary for the game. I really do.
Yeah.
It's super simple to get up. It's more of what you like, and I like the variability of how the game changes each time. And you get two more landmarks. Plus, you get the city hall, which is super important. One of the biggest complaints against Machi Koro is that if you start off your turn and you roll the die and you just don't get money, well then you're still broke and your turn is over. The
Yeah.
city hall has a card specifically that says if you have zero money, and at the beginning of your buy phase, which is after you roll, then you take 1 coin. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to buy something that turn, but at least you're not absolutely nil of money, and you have at
Yeah.
least a chance to, once you roll on the next turn, if you got 1 or 2 coins, then at least you have 2 or 3 to go into that turn. I really like that option. Millionaire's Row adds some more interactivity, whereas some buildings can be deconstructed. And you have like little they look like caution sign symbols on it, where you have to activate it to reuse or take off the token, but you don't get what's on the card. And so that adds some little player interaction. I don't think it's necessary. I do own it. I'm happy with all three, the base and the 2 expansions, but I don't think that's a necessary expansion that you need to have.
Yeah, I've only played the Harbor expansion, Machi Koro. I'm gonna have to take your word for a lot of the expansion parts of it because I just got Space Base. I haven't bought the expansions yet. I do want to try at least the Shy Pluto one.
Okay.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. The Harbor one, I do agree, it's important. You need to get that one. That is, we talk about this with Champions of Midgard, where you need the Valhalla expansion to make that a really good game, a great game in that. In fact, I say the same thing about Machi Koro. You really need the Harbor expansion to make that game shine. I kind of want to play this with the Harbor expansion to see if my wife likes it a little bit more with the expansion itself, because we only played the base game and she just detested that game.
Yeah. Well, let's
and
talk
so
about. We can jump into the expansion real quick for Space Base too. So I have played the entirety of the Emergence of Shy Pluto expansion, which is like kind of like a story legacy style. It adds some more components, but once you're done with the storyline, you have all the new components you can play consistently. I don't think it's necessary to. I would be like, I know I'm not going to, but I would be fine telling you how all the expansion works, because you're never making permanent changes to the game.
Yeah.
And so the new stuff that the Emergence of Shy Pluto adds to the storyline doesn't affect your decision for the future games. So you just learn to play with the game itself. If you win, you go on to the next round. That's about it. So it's not super legacy per se, but it is a campaign and it is story driven. And I really enjoy what they do with the expansion. I'm not going to give spoilers for this, but I will say that it's a really enjoyable expansion. It's one of my favorite expansions for a game. Now, that's also saying the only other expansion for Space Base at the moment is the command station or the commander box, which adds 2 more players, and that's it.
Yeah, and well, that and it's a bigger box to hold everything, including future expansions that they've talked about.
Right.
And so we're talking about
big enough, it actually encourages you to put the entire Emergence of Shy Pluto box in the box. Like it holds that expansion as its own unit inside of that box. Think about that for a minute. You and I like to dismantle the expansion box included in the base set. This just tells you take the box and put it in the box.
Put it in here. Yeah, no. It's funny. It's interesting. Speaking of campaigns, I like the fact that it's a campaign. So you can have your base game. You're not making permanent changes. So you're like, okay, I can take this out and teach someone the regular game. Well, the thing is, Machi Koro actually has a legacy version. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the legacy because I played its entirety as well. I will tell you right now, if you don't like how random Machi Koro is with the expansions, then this is not going to convince you anything else. There is random in this still, just as much. There are some really neat legacy aspects to it that they add on throughout the game. There is some new components, some new ideas that are involved in it, and I really enjoy them. And of course, it's entirely playable once the storyline is done. The best thing about this legacy, there's 2 things about it. First, it's a legacy that's under $50. That's awesome, because that's really uncommon, and you got it for a great deal. Like you can get it for $25 half off.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful deal for a legacy game. However, if you like the silliness of Machi Koro and you're like, man, this just seems like a silly, like little peaceful thing, the story is completely off the wall. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. If you're okay with that, if you're fine with knowing how random it can be and how ridiculous the story can be, then I think you're gonna absolutely love Machi Koro Legacy. It's a phenomenal little take. They took a really silly storyline and added it to Machi Koro as a base. And so I think Daniel, I know you like silliness in games from time
Oh
to
yeah.
time, and so I think you're gonna really enjoy it. Your wife though, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I may save it for when we can get back to our game group because I think the guys would be fine with it. The four of
Yeah,
us, we'd have a blast with it. But
yeah.
yeah, I agree. So I just wanted to touch on the legacy a little bit because you have played it. I haven't. I just picked it up though. So
And there's another version of Machi Koro I feel like we should talk about too. That's lesser talked about. It's the Bright Lights Big City version that was only exclusive to Target.
for a
And
time being, you can
yeah,
find it in Barnes now.
yeah. If you can find it at Barnes, honestly, if you want to get an introduction to a good Machi Koro, that's kind of what I suggest for people because it doesn't have all the cards that the expansions have. It kind of picks like some of the best cards from each expansion and the base, but it only
Mhm.
has as much components as the base set does. However, what it does that I think is necessary is that you have three decks of cards that are distinguishable by their back. You have the cards that are numbered from one that would trigger through 1 through 6, so a single die
Mhm.
roll, and the numbers are the cards that would trigger from 7 to 12. And those are separate decks that you shuffle up and you deal out, I think, 3 or 4 of each one of those. And then you have a deck specifically for just landmarks that you shuffle and deal 2 of those. So you have 10 cards out at all times. And you're never going to have a time where you don't have the option. If I'm playing just because I want to roll a single die and everything out on the field is like sevens and above, that's pointless. That ruins my strategy in base Machi Koro. This
Yeah.
fixes that problem, and the fact that it's kind of like a culmination of the best stuff, that's worth looking into. If you're hesitant in going into Machi Koro just because you're not sure about the random or like some of the flaws that we're pointing out today, Bright Lights Big City would probably be your best bet to get into it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I've seen it, haven't played that version of it, but I've by researching this and making sure we got everything taken care of before
Mm-hmm.
we can talk about it, I looked into this one and I have to say, if I were to buy a copy, it'd probably be this. It looks like a not I wouldn't say a simpler version, but more simplified, making it easier for people to get into this style of game.
Yep.
Whereas that first one, there was some flaws and you need an expansion to make it better. And then they give you that other expansion that can convolute things and make it a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
longer than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But this one I've heard really good things about.
Yeah. It's worth trying. Absolutely. I'll bring it over so you can try it sometime. Oh, that'll be the running gag. All right. So I think that mostly breaks down the game. The best comparison I can say is that if you want to play, and this is for Machi Koro, if you are a big fan of Settlers of Catan and want something that's different, or maybe you want to play with friends or family who aren't gamers, Catan, I don't care what anybody says. It's not as easy as everybody thinks it is. It's
No,
pretty straightforward, but I don't think it's as simple as a lot of people are like, oh, it's the simplest game. No, it's not.
no.
Let them try Machi Koro, and if they like that kind of interaction where they're kind of beholden to the dice, but there's still a lot of player interaction, and it's way simpler. If they like that, then the next level up would be Settlers of Catan.
And I also have to say this about Machi Koro. If you have someone who likes that city building aspect of games, like building, like you mentioned Monopoly, where you're kind of building up a city, Atlantic City in this case, Machi Koro could fit that theme for them. They are building a city. They are putting businesses out there. They are putting sports arenas. They're interacting with the other players because they're building their own cities as well. I think that's something people could get into if that's the kind of theme they want to get into. Now, speaking of theme, Space Base, by its name, is a sci-fi theme about space exploration. You have a command center. Which one do you actually think fits the theme better?
Machi Koro, absolutely, because all your buildings get you money, which is what you want in a business. You want money. Space makes no sense as to how it actually works. It could have been that is the perfect example of a pace it on theme. It did not have to have that theme at all.
Yeah, and the thing I do have to say this about Space Base, both of these are in a sense engine builders. I
Mhm.
like the engine building in Space Base better, but the theme matches Machi Koro better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you like crunch your euros and you want an excuse for that, because really space base is based on victory points, by
Yeah.
not like Machi Koro. Well, Machi Koro is a cool alternative. It's literally just once you do this, once you've completed these landmarks, you're done. First one
Yeah.
to do it. That's your race. So I like that aspect of it.
There,
But
there, there is a card in Space Base that allows you, if you meet this goal, you win, and
yeah,
that's the 12.
alternate victory. Yeah, there's alternate victories, and there's ways to charge it up too and activate it elsewise. Yeah, there's a lot of great engine building in Space Base, where Machi Koro I think is just a good family weight. Technically, it's an engine building, it's a tableau building game. It's really good about that. Whereas I agree with you. If you're more of a heavier gamer and you've been on the fence about it, if you're playing normal games like Dice Forge or I don't know, Vita Lacerda games, and Michael Pfister or
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Pfister,
Alexander Pfister.
Alexander Pfister. Yeah. That's how it does. And good question. How do you spell each of the game names, by the way? For Machi Koro is Machikoro, and Space Base is just Space Base. Yeah. So, and thank you, Daniel, for posting that in the comments. So I think they're phenomenal games. They're worth looking into. I don't know if either of them have an app or any digital versions of it. Do you?
Not that I can think of. If anyone would, I would think it'd be Machi Koro.
Yeah, I would imagine Machi as well. So we'll look into that just to see for our viewers. We hope that clarifies that for you. Which would you recommend, Daniel?
Me personally, it just depends on the situation. If, as you were saying, if you're into that heavier Euro style, victory point style game, I would say Space Base. It's not heavy and there's a lot of luck in it, but there's a lot of mitigation that you can do with that luck. Because again, you can split the dice, you can take the 3 and the 4, get your engine triggering different things because you have the cards that say, hey, trigger to your left if you roll a 4, trigger to your right if you roll this, and stuff like that. So if you like that and that comboing, I think Space Base is the game for you. But if you're looking for something that's a bit simpler to play with your family, say with your 8, 9, 10-year-old, that is real easy to grasp in concept,
Or just non-gamers.
or non-gamers for that matter, or people who played the classic games like Monopoly, Risk, Catan, that sort of thing, then I'd say Machi Koro. That's where I put this, is if you're a heavier gamer, go Space Base. If you're wanting more lightweight, go Machi Koro.
The last thing I would like to compare between the two is that I feel that if you like Machi Koro, there is a very good chance that you like Space Base as well.
Base.
But if you really like Space Base, I can't guarantee you'll like Machi Koro.
A lot of times we've been hearing, and this is the reason why we wanted to talk about this and do the compare and contrast, is people say Space Base killed Machi Koro for them because it does a lot of the same things that Machi Koro does, but it does it faster and you're more engaged into it. And I can understand that. And there's less take that in Space Base than there is in Machi Koro.
That's right. That's right. There is absolutely less take that. And there's just more interaction. I mean, there's more to do on other players' turns in Space Base than there is Machi Koro. At the beginning, no, but after you start building your engine, there's more and more interaction. Whereas Machi Koro, it's more like, oh, well, but I do like it when one person rolls the number that everybody has a building to steal from them, and they all hold out their hand. Like, I'm waiting, So I think that pretty much wraps it up between the two. I like them both personally. My family all like each of them, except for my daughter who likes neither of them. So take that as you will.
Yeah, no, I have to say I like both of these games. I prefer Space Base over Machi Koro because, again, I like the victory point aspect and the less take that aspect of it, and the fact that it just feels faster than the other one. But I do really enjoy both these games, and I do want to give the legacy version of Machi Koro a try.
Yeah. And So Very Wrong About Games brought up Dice City is very similar. I've played Dice City as well. It's kind of like a bingo thing going on. And it is definitely a tableau engine building. Yeah, that's a great comparison that none of the people on Facebook actually brought up. I can't believe I didn't think of that because that is more or less a similar idea. Cool. Well, that's been our episode for this. If you're in our chat, stick around because we're going to film another episode right afterwards. as always, we hope that you've enjoyed listening to this podcast. We hope that this has helped you find your next favorite game, whether it be Machi Koro, Space Base, or even something else that we've referenced today. So if you ever want to join us live, like So Very Wrong About Games and Creative Chaos, both awesome people joining us, you can join us on twitch.tv/everydayboardgames.
As well as you can find all video re-uploads of these episodes on Everyday Board Games 2020 on YouTube. If you like what you find, please give us a subscribe and a like and comment down below if all possible. We also will send links to our Twitch as well as our audio podcast versions, which can be found on most audio podcast platforms, including Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, and Podbean under Everyday Board Games Podcast.
And if you ever want to give us ideas for future episode or just reach out to say hi and we're not online, you can email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com.
You can also find us on our official Twitter account under @EBG Podcast. And before we go, I do want to mention one thing. Next week is our first year anniversary. So we're going to be recording 2 very special episodes for those, and we've mentioned it before. The Chits and Giggles podcast topic is our favorite games we played in the year since we started this podcast. And our top 8 debate is the Top 8 Debate Championship, where we debate the top 8 games that have won a top 8 debate.
That's a lot of top 8 debates. That's almost 24 at this point.
It's well over 30.
It's well over 30. Absolutely. That'll be fun. And so, yeah, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to Everyday Board Games. As always, I've been Daniel.
And I've been Daniel.
And thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
Have a good one.